Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to a Capital Hungry educational webinar on vaccine economics. So I just want to I just want to talk about a disclaimer here that this is not any discussion on conspiracy theories. This is not discussing if COVID is fake or if vaccines kill people or any other misinformation. I 100% believe the coronavirus is a real virus, and I am not trying to deter anybody from taking the vaccine or not. This is simply a discussion looking at absolute facts sourced from Bloomberg, Reuters, and other news sources regarding the economics and business of vaccines and what we have seen take place so far over the last 2 years. Okay? So let's jump right into it, shall we? For anybody who doesn't understand, a basic successful business model, very, very basic, is value times scale. For those of you who don't know, value is usually finding a solution for a problem, and scale is the potential of how big or fast you can grow a business venture and idea. Having a very large value point and very important value point, as well as being able to scale that value solution for a problem, is what essentially leads to a very successful business that will have longevity within the market it is involved in. Okay? So value times scale. Keep that in mind. Now, with March 2020, we saw a global problem hit the scene. A pandemic. The coronavirus was discovered in China and started to spread from the Asian countries, going from Europe to North America. This led to global fear and uncertainty and a problem that we had yet to have a solution for. The solution given for this problem, regardless of the survival and risk rate, as confirmed by the World Health Organization, COVID-19 has a 99% survival rate and is of course a mutation of the SARS viral group and is essentially not high risk for a healthy younger individual. But regardless, we were told by our government leaders and officials that the solution to get out of this pandemic was a product, the product being vaccines. Now, we have to understand and look at vaccines like any other product or service. The value of this product was immense. You have a problem that's impacting the global scale with only one singular solution, and for the most part, the solution being dictated by the government parties and assigned to very specific vaccine companies. For the most part, the companies that got the deals with global countries were Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and there were a few others, but those were really the main big players. So what we had happen was, number one, there was a global problem. Then a solution presented for this problem with the potential scalability to the entire world. The entire world was essentially forced to be a customer, which we will be talking about that in a second. But first, let's talk about the basics of the product, the vaccines themselves. Okay? So, when these vaccines were released for this coronavirus variant COVID-19 virus, it was through a very short period of time. March 2020, the virus was discovered. Within about 4 to 6 months, the production of these vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna was already well underway. Various countries around the world were using central bank printed money as well as taxpayer money to buy millions and millions of doses with contracts signed ahead of time, as the scope of these countries from a business perspective was to buy enough doses to give all of their citizens a vaccine and multiple doses. Okay? So it was already predetermined through the sales and contracts of the vaccines from the government parties to buy enough vaccines ahead of time to ensure vaccinating all 100% of country populations and also having boosters ready to go ahead of time as well. What I'm trying to tell you is that you have this huge cash cow in huge business with the potential for a global scale customer base and also the potential to have the entire world become your customer. There are many, many parties involved that are benefiting off the business of the vaccine economics. The parties involved include the actual main vaccine companies assigned the contracts via global governments, other big pharma and healthcare companies working in contract form with the vaccine companies, financial institutions providing lending, credit, investment, and so forth, investors, politicians, and lobbyists. You had contracts and deals for millions and millions of doses of vaccines, boosters, and such signed and sealed before variants are discovered, as the sales quotas and such have been met. Governments are using printed money and taxpayer money to buy enough vaccines ahead of time to vaccinate 100% of their respected population and customer base. But there were a few issues that came to the table. Number one, the vaccine itself, confirmed by the World Health Organization and confirmed by government officials, does not actually protect you from COVID or prevent transmission. It can potentially decrease the likelihood of getting COVID or transmitting it, but you can still overall get COVID and transmit COVID. Number two, because of the actual severity of COVID-19 having a 99% survival rate and very minimal symptoms, where most of the symptoms were very similar to flu or cold-like symptoms, most individuals at the start of the pandemic did not voluntarily take the vaccine. So now you have a big issue at hand. You have these governments and various corporations and country leaders who have already ordered the vaccines, who have already paid the money, and have already signed the contracts with these vaccine companies. You have way too many hands involved with this cash cow, from the vaccine companies, the big pharma and healthcare companies working hand in hand, the financial institutions, the investors, the politicians, and the lobbyists. So, how are we going to get the customers, the citizens, aka us, to consume this vaccine to fulfill those orders that have already been in play ahead of time? This is where the marketing tactics come into play. So, the first issue that these government bodies and vaccine companies started to face is that they realized that because COVID-19, scientifically proven for a healthy individual, confirmed by the World Health Organization, has a 99% survival and recovery rate, and because the symptoms are fairly low risk for healthy individuals and very similar to flu-like symptoms, there wasn't a large enough voluntary push to get vaccines. So they had to start using various marketing tactics that are just happen to be similar to the tactics of tyrants and totalitarian rulers. The marketing tactics round one to push vaccines to the majority of the population was to first fearmonger in the news on the severity and risks of COVID-19. There was constant misinformation on the severity, on the symptoms, on the case numbers. All you saw in the last 2 years on social media, on mainstream news outlets, was constant fear, constant chaos, and confusion around COVID-19. This is to cause individuals to make a very abrupt decision, only being compliant and no longer following logic. On top of the fear mongering and creating problems out of nothing and going against the science and creating mass information and chaos, there was also the tactics by governments to remove individuals' freedoms and rights unless you were vaccinated. Because the solution to the pandemic was not herd immunity. The solution to the pandemic was not social distancing. The solution to the pandemic was not lockdowns. None of those are profitable. None of those are products or services that can be monetized. The only solution to the pandemic is getting 100% of the population vaccinated. That's what we've been told by mainstream media. That's what we've been told by the government parties. That's what we've been told by our leaders, because the vaccines can be monetized. The vaccines are a product that can potentially benefit a ton of various parties that are involved that we already described. So, because COVID had a 99% survival rate, but the orders for the vaccines were already in, which we can come look at an example here in our capital hungry newsroom. I'm just gonna I'm winging this webinar, right? I'm just doing everything live. So I'm gonna do doses purchased, and we're gonna have to scroll back very far, right? You can see here, this is September 2020. Britain says it will commit to 71 million pounds in a COVAX initiative for 27 million doses. This is Sao Paulo, a different governor, talking about the Sinovac vaccine, purchasing millions and millions of doses. This is December 21st, Malaysia, talking about purchasing millions and millions of the AstraZeneca vaccine. This is the Pakistani cabinet. And these are all headlines sourced by Reuters and sourced by Bloomberg. This is December 30th, 2020. Millions and millions of doses purchased. The European Commission, January 8th, 2021, purchasing an additional 200 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine produced by biotech and Pfizer. You can see that these orders being purchased were going on over the last 2 years, well before variants were being discovered, and being purchased well ahead of time when knowing boosters will be needed or not. January 26th, before the Delta variant was a major issue, before Omicron was discovered, Biden administration, with an example of the US government, purchased another 200 million doses of Pfizer, Moderna, increasing overall total to 600 million doses. That means that they're looking to vaccinate every individual at least 2 to 3 times, because there are more orders to come on top of that, right? And you can go up the list. You can see these various vaccine companies and vaccine producers and manufacturers looking to produce and purchase millions and millions of doses through the entirety of 2020 and through the entirety of 2021. Now you can even come to recent times, right? And you can see, for example, South Korea is looking to purchase another 30 million doses of Pfizer's vaccine for 2022 use, okay? So we can see that the majority of these vaccine companies and governments already have purchase orders that are ordered ahead of time for 2022, 2023, and 2024. We even had the Pfizer CEO himself come to the table and say that he doesn't see the end of the pandemic until 2024. This wasn't on a call with the public. This was on an investor call. Okay? The Pfizer company didn't come say this information to the public, to the mainstream media, to the masses. This was information that was discussed on investor calls. Because understand, this is a huge global business where the entire world is forced to be a customer. Otherwise, you lose your rights and freedoms, because the orders and purchases and contracts for this product are already in play. You have the vaccine companies themselves saying on investor calls, we're not going to see the endemic phase until 2024. That's still another 2 years from now. Okay? So what I want you to understand, and this is confirmed fact sourced by Reuters and Bloomberg, is that the purchase orders for the vaccines have come well before the actual discovery of variants, or before the masses have known that they have to get a second booster or a third booster and so forth. Okay? The economics of the vaccines is very clear to see. Number one, you're having the vaccine companies themselves lay out economic plans for producing more vaccines well into 2023 and 2024. Number two, you have confirmed countries' governments that are using central bank printed money, which is increasing inflation and increasing the cost of goods for the people, and also using people's taxpayer money to purchase more vaccines well ahead of time for 2022, 2023, and 2024. Number three, it's not just the booster doses of the vaccines. We also see an extension of the vaccine product line, okay? It's not just the boosters. There have already been orders for vaccine antiviral pills that have been well known for months now, that have been not told to mainstream media until today, and we will talk about that in a little bit. So you can see, for example, here, Biden says that they have already put in their orders for 10 million courses of the antiviral COVID-19 Pfizer pill. The vaccine product line is not just limited to the boosters anymore or the needles. It's also coming out with antiviral pills. It's also coming out with antiviral nasal sprays. It's an entire business product line that is going to be forced for the consumers to take, or give them options to take one of these 3 or 4 products to further support the profits and profit margins of the vaccine companies, which we will further talk about in a second. Okay? So this is no conspiracy. This isn't talking about if the vaccine side effects or what can potentially happen if you take the vaccine. No, no, no. This is talking about the agenda that is very clear to push the consumption of these vaccines due to the business economics that need to be fulfilled, as the purchase orders for these various products are already well underway, and there's too many parties involved that are benefiting from this cash cow. From the politicians, the investors, the vaccine companies, the healthcare companies, the lobbyists, and so forth. Okay? Okay? So, we can see that even going back to the topic here, bro, we're not talking about the Bible. Nobody gives a fuck about Jesus during this webinar, Aaron. I had to say that. Let's go back to topic here. Vaccine economics. So, because the virus confirmed by the World Health Organization has a 99% survival rate, these various tactics needed to be used to push the vaccine consumption, because the orders and business side was already well underway. Okay? So these tactics were very successful. This was very successful as the above tactics forced many people to get the vaccines outside of COVID fear. There was various surveys done on individuals in North America of why they took the COVID vaccine. If they took it to protect themselves from COVID or for any other reasons listed. The majority of people who took the COVID vaccine took it due to 1, fear, and 2, to go back to a normal way of life, whether it be traveling, going to work and not losing their job, being able to access normal society amenities such as the gym, healthcare facilities, stores, and so forth. The majority of people were pushed into this corner to take the vaccine to avoid all of these various loss of freedoms and so forth, where we can see that that still did not lead to any success. Okay? But it was successful in terms of being a marketing tactic to push the consumption of vaccines. Now, what I want you to understand is that this consumption of the vaccines was extremely lucrative. You had 50% of the US population being vaccinated, which led to a huge profit example. Number one, I'll give you guys a profit example. In Canada here, you have about 2 or 3 main banks. Royal Bank of Canada is the largest Canadian banking institution, and it roughly earns 10 to 12 billion dollars in revenue in a year. Pfizer, the vaccine company, earned $20 billion in just Q3 in one quarter and saw the stock prices rise exponentially, right? Look at here. This is Pfizer Investopedia Q3 2021 earnings report. Just a singular quarter in terms of revenue. You can see that the revenue within that 3-month span was roughly $20 billion plus dollars, okay? 60% of this revenue and 60% of the increase in stock price was attributed to the COVID-19 vaccine. You saw a 134% expansion in revenue year over year. These are numbers and facts that cannot be argued. These vaccines are not free. It is a product that is being purchased with central bank printed money and taxpayer money. It is a product that also needs to be consumed to confirm the revenue as well as increase in share price for the benefit of the shareholders, investors, and other companies involved. Okay? So please understand that you have in $20 billion in revenue in a singular quarter, 134% expansion in revenue year over year. 60% of this was directly contributed to vaccines. More than half. Okay? You can see examples with Moderna and Pfizer share prices saw an exponential rise. Pfizer shares almost tripled in price value from $26 up to $62 from the start of the pandemic, having a very healthy bullish trend where who do you think is benefiting off this exponential increase in the share price? The investors, the lobbyists, the shareholders, the politicians who are invested. It's one big circle where the people are paying the price. The people are the consumer. The people are essentially the guinea pigs, right? You can also see Moderna from the start of 2020, which was at roughly $20 a share, has increased and exploded from $20 a share up to, at its high, $500 a share. Okay? Who is benefiting off this exponential increase in share price? Well, me for one, because I bought the Pfizer and Moderna shares months ago. But it's the shareholders, the investors, the politicians, the lobbyists who are pushing this agenda because it's increasing their profits, it's increasing their generational wealth and so forth. Okay? So, to recap, we can see that this fear-mongering was enough to get roughly 50% of the population, 50 to 60% of the population within US and Canada vaccinated. But that is not enough. The deals have already been signed, the contracts are formed, the sales quotas are met, that they have produced enough vaccines to have 100% of country populations vaccinated. 50% of the population vaccinated is not enough. They still have more vaccines in supply. They still have more deals that are already signed, contracts met. They already have expectations that need to be met for the investors, the shareholders, the politicians, the lobbyists, and so forth. So there's a problem now. This is not enough for the deals that are signed, the contracts that are formed, and the sales quotas that need to be met. So what happened? First, the people were told that you just need to get one shot and one booster and you will be vaccinated and you can go back to your normal way of life. You will get your freedoms and rights back to you, right? Then the data gets manipulated. New variants are discovered, the Delta variant. Now one shot is not enough. Now you need two because the new variant poses a bigger risk. So the definition of vaccine changes because it's all up in the air. The World Health Organization, along with the government officials, say to be officially vaccinated, now you need 2 booster shots. The new variant idea was a great marketing tactic and a great solution to change the narrative and push more boosters. But this is a problem because we have an issue here. We have multiple issues. Number one, it has been confirmed by the World Health Organization that even with 2 boosters, you can still get COVID and you can still transmit COVID. Number 2, this is still targeting the same 50% of the population who got the initial vaccine and who fell victim to these marketing and sales tactics. We still have an issue. The same 50% of the population went to go get their second booster. But the second 50% of the population, the rest of the customer base, has yet to get their first vaccine, never mind their second vaccine booster, because they do not trust their government parties. They do not trust the misinformation. They do not trust how they are being confused, led astray, and led into this chaos, because it's still confirmed by the World Health Organization that even when you are defined as fully vaccinated, having 2 boosters, you can still get COVID and transmit COVID, okay? So we have a third problem now. The new variants and the fear mongering regarding the new variants and pushing the second and third boosters is still targeting the same 50% of individuals who fell victim to the marketing tactics above. But countries have ordered enough vaccines for multiple boosters and to vaccinate every individual. That means that there is still 50% of the customer base left, aka them labeled as the unvaccinated. If this much money was made off just 50% of populations getting vaccinated, if there was this much increase in stock and share prices over 50% of the population getting vaccinated, imagine the filthy profits if the entire population gets vaccinated. So now we're seeing another marketing tactic and another solution. What is the solution by these vaccine companies and the narrative being pushed by everybody involved in this cash cow? Make the unvaccinated people into the black sheep. Make them into the scapegoats of society. Just like various dictators and tyrannical rules have done before in history to push their narrative and to push their agenda. We saw it with Hitler, using the Jews as the black sheep and scapegoats, and push his narrative and his agenda of an ideal humanity race, of an ideal race. We saw it with Joseph Stalin in Russia, using the Ukrainians and other Asian populations like the Tibet monks and so forth example during his reign and tyrannical rule in Russia, where they use them as the scapegoats and blame them, right? We've seen it happen before. And for example, when the US used Iraq as a scapegoat when they said they had weapons of mass destruction to go in and to make that as a catalyst to go and invade the country, even though there was no weapons of mass destruction, right? It is a strategy and narrative and a marketing tactic to make the unvaccinated people into the black sheep, to have the vaccinated target the unvaccinated, that they're the risk. They're the reason for the massive surge in cases. They're the reason for the spread of COVID. They're the reason for the risk on people's safety and pushing them into the corner to have them become a consumer. But there's something very interesting that is going against this narrative, that you can still get the COVID virus even when fully vaccinated. Also, if somebody has the COVID vaccine and is protected, why do they care about somebody who doesn't have the vaccine? Right? That clearly means that the current protection of the vaccine is not what we are being told. If somebody has the vaccine, they're supposed to be protected from the virus, as well as when if they potentially get it in terms of transmitting the virus. Yes, we have confirmed that there is an increase in protection with the vaccine, but it's also confirmed that you can 100% still contract the virus and transmit the virus. So why is there such a massive push against the unvaccinated people? For example, look at this loaded statement from the White House. They are having the people who are vaccinated as the good guys. If you are vaccinated, you did what's right and you will get through this. But if you are unvaccinated, you are looking at a winter of severe illness, death for yourselves and your family, and also the hospitals you may soon overwhelm. This is a marketing tactic. This is fear mongering. This is creating a minority population into a scapegoat, making them into the black sheep. Because the reality is, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, you can still get the COVID virus. The reality is, majority of unvaccinated individuals are not going to the hospitals. They're not even getting tested, right? The way that the majority of individuals that are getting tested are the people who are already vaccinated and have already been into a state of fear and chaos from a mental perspective. But why are the unvaccinated individuals being targeted? Because that is the other 50% of individuals who have yet to consume this product. That's the other customer base that's left. Okay? So there's no conspiracy. I'm not here to tell you that the virus is fake. The virus is 100% real. I'm not here to tell you that people have not died from the virus. Yes, they have. I'm not here to tell you about potential risks of the vaccine or to take the vaccine or not to take it. I could give less of a fuck. I'm here to explain the very out in the open vaccine economics that are being ignored by the majority of individuals and masses. The money, the business behind the scenes that are pushing and pulling the strings. Okay? This is happening in every country across the world. Let me show you guys examples. You're seeing the same type of tactics, the same types of orders, the same types of contracts being signed from various countries. Now, let me give you guys an example. This is an example of Pfizer antiviral pills that were well known 2 to 3 months ago, where the orders for these pills were already well underway and already well known. But the masses in mainstream media were not communicated this information about the antiviral pills yet, as they were still focused on getting booster number 2 and now potentially booster number 3. Okay? So what we can see is that all of the orders and money has come well ahead of the actual variants. The orders are coming well before. So this is an example of the COVID-19 antiviral pills. If you cannot see the economics and business of these lucrative vaccine companies and vaccines and all the parties involved, I'm sorry to say, you are extremely uneducated, you are extremely lost, you are blind as can be, and you are essentially the root of the problem. Okay? Now, look at this headline with Biden. This is from months ago, with orders already in for the antiviral pill. It's not just the US government, the European Union has done the same thing, the UK government, and other countries have done the same thing. Now look at what Biden announced today. Today, Biden just announced this. The Food and Drug Administration is poised to authorize a pair of pills from Pfizer and Merck to treat COVID-19. So now you're telling me you had first booster shot number 1, then booster shot number 2, then booster shot number 3, which is coming up for the next mandate. You can have all 3 vaccines and still have the risk of contracting the virus and transmitting the virus, right? Now you can see that before the mainstream media even knew it, this just came out today. The orders for the pills were already in, right? Now on top of the booster shots, you also have the COVID-19 pills that are going to be released to the public, where the orders for these pills were already in months prior. Okay? It's not just that. You can come check these various headlines here from countries across the world. Biden ordering 10 million doses of the antiviral pill. Japan orders another 120 million doses of vaccines for 2022 and onward. Moderna, the company itself, will be supplying doses to the African Union for 2022 and up until 2023. Pfizer will be expanding another 1 billion doses as per investor calls and as per contract obligations through 2022 and so forth. Japan to get another 50 million doses for 2022. This was all before Omicron variant was even discovered. This was August. This was October, September, August, before Omicron variant was discovered, before we were even known that we were going to have to take a third booster. The orders and agreements in the millions and millions of doses were already in and predetermined. You can't combat or refute. You can't say that this is fake. This is sourced from Bloomberg. This is economic data and news. You can't say that this is fake. This is the real revenue earned in 3 months. You can't say that this is fake. This is the reality of the finances. You can't say that this is fake. You can confirm that these tactics were used. Everything in this webinar is 100% fact sourced from Bloomberg, Reuters, the World Health Organization regarding the vaccine economics. Okay? The orders are in. The contracts are signed. The products need to be pushed and consumed. Who are the customers? Everybody in every single country. All right? So, I don't want to make this too long. I just wanted to make it very to the point. This isn't to, again, disclaimer, this is not to deter anyone from taking the vaccine or not taking it. This is not to say COVID is fake. This is not to spread any misinformation regarding the science of the vaccines or the virus. I'm only repeating information that's been given by the World Health Organization, by the government officials, information sourced from Reuters and Bloomberg, and this is directly talking about the business of vaccines, the economics of vaccines, the timeline that has taken place. The order of date of events for the purchases, the contracts, the quantity of the millions and millions of doses, the agenda and contracts that need to be fulfilled, the amount of parties involved within this huge cash cow, this monstrous business model that impacts all of us from a day-to-day perspective. Okay? There was nothing stated to deter individuals from taking the vaccine or to talk about any disregard of COVID-19 information. We were simply looking at the science that COVID confirmed has a 99% survival rate. We were talking about symptoms confirmed by the World Health Organization. We are talking about facts confirmed by the World Health Organization as well. Simply talking about the economics and finance, talking about the profits, and everything else in between, which is complete fact and cannot be argued. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Numbers do not lie. numbers in terms of profits, numbers in terms of revenue, numbers in terms of percentages, numbers in terms of share prices, numbers in terms of orders put in, the quantity of orders, the dates of orders. These numbers do not lie. Okay? Thank you everybody for attending this webinar. Hopefully that was very informational and educational, just simply looking at the business and economics of vaccines. Thank you everybody. Have a great day and take care.